Alright, what is good, everybody? Hey, would you look at that? I forgot to turn on my camera. Hold up, give it a second. We'll get there. We'll get there. Is it going? Is it going? There it goes. Oh boy. You know. It's been close to a week at this point since the last time I streamed. I missed two planned stream days in a row. All thanks to the wonders of the holidays. I try to not be bitter about it because largely I appreciate the holidays. I like more than anything, I like the break from normal life. I'm a very routine-oriented person, combined with being a very goal-oriented and driven type of person too, which means that throughout the year, I push myself to accomplish a lot of things. And I very much enjoy living my life that way. I'm very happy that I do all of that. But the flip side of it is it does mean that I tend to fire on all cylinders all year long. So there is something nice about the holidays and the fact that they just sort of have built into them this break from everything, right? Everyone kind of agrees like, hey, this is the time of year when we're all going to take some time off. We're all going to visit with friends and family and all that kind of stuff. So I do appreciate the holidays, even though in a lot of ways they throw me through a loop because they, by virtue of me being a schedule and routine-oriented person, when you have all of these end-of-the-year events, holiday things happening, and so on and so forth, it disrupts my routine, which can be a difficult thing for me as an individual. But the flip side of it is it does largely, like I say, give me a chance to pause in things. So it's all good. It's all good. It disrupts my streaming schedule a little bit, and it will continue to do so for the next couple weeks. So I apologize in advance for that. But I'm here now. I'm happy about it, and I'm really excited to sit here and do some more work on our campaign that we've been slowly plugging along at. I wanted to try and I was hoping to try and by the end of this year, essentially, be done with the dungeon we're working on right now. I don't know if that's going to happen because of how much detail and care I like to put into my dungeons. So I don't know that that's going to exactly be how it pans out, but hey, we can try. And I suppose the first step towards doing that is for me to stop gib-gabbing here and actually get us to it. So let's bring us into our main screen here. It has been almost a week, so I'm going to just give a quick rundown like I do of what we've been working on for anyone. If this happens to be your first time checking out what I'm working on, this can hopefully give you at least a basic premise idea of what it is we're doing here. We are making a campaign for D&D, primarily focused around 5e, but the idea is that we put enough just primary story beats that if you wanted to play in just about any other fantasy-based rule set, all you'd have to do is pluck out the stat blocks and plug in whatever you wanted. I try to not have anything story-based be too dependent on rules and mechanics and everything like that. I try to keep those things separate. More so choosing the story beats that I want to have happen and then find the mechanics that fit it rather than the other way around. But that is what we're working on. This campaign is intended to take a group of roughly 5 players, give or take 1 or 2, from level 1 all the way through level 10, roughly. Every campaign gets run a little differently. Everyone, kind of accomplishes different things at different paces and all that kind of stuff, but that's what we're designing it for. This entire campaign does take place in my homebrew world, but again, my hope is that by keeping things in sort of a self-contained story and a self-contained part of my world, it'd be pretty easy. So if anyone wanted to take any ideas that I present here for their own game and modify them, it wouldn't be that difficult to do. But just to give a rundown of how I run my homebrew world, this is a homebrew world I've been working on in some capacity for almost a decade at this point in time. Somewhere around there. It's hard to pinpoint when the first time I ever wrote anything that has been put into this world was, but for roughly a decade, this world has been my baby. It's called Zeoria, and it is a post-calamity type of world. There was an event called the Unhinging, which if we were to consider the material plane combined with the elemental and the ethereal planes and all of that to be just sort of like a jar with different layers of sand, rock, dirt, water, oil, all these things that kind of like, layer out like you tend to see, right? If that's what the existence was within this world, the unhinging was someone taking that jar and shaking it up so that all of the different realms and worlds got mixed up. So magic started showing up in material plane, so on and so forth. All kinds of weird, crazy, horrible things started happening as a result. Horrible monsters made most of the world pretty uninhabitable. The humanoids of the world kind of filtered out and found survival in one of any like 10 or so cities that were well established and well protected. The rest of the world was given to the wilds, as it's known. But over the years, it's been a couple thousand years since that happened, and so those layers are starting to re-percolate out like they were beforehand. And so because of that, there are now more and more adventures to be taking place within this world and various efforts to find treasure, find history, and all these long forgotten and abandoned cities and cultures and everything like that, as well as reclaim a lot of the wilds for the sort of regrowth of these once isolated and really put upon cities. So that's the nature of the world, just so you can have sort of a rough picture of what type of setting we're creating. Now, you can see here I've got the map here of my world. This campaign takes place only in one of these hexes. This hex right here is the one that it takes place in, and now we can pull up our sort of region map that we have for this campaign. You can see we've got a lot of different landscapes here, which makes it a really fun thing. We've got our Siski Forest up here, which is a very, very like Mirkwood type of place. We have the High Doom Mountains here, which is, a very mountainous area. And then we have the Golden Wind Plains, which is a very Serengeti-esque type of place. So we have a wide range of environments, which is kind of why I chose to do stream the process of writing a campaign here, because I thought it would give us a lot of different looks, so we can just kind of have fun experimenting. Sometimes it's really fun to have a very homogeneous environment for an entire campaign, and I think that can go over very well with players as long as it's done right and you find interesting ways to explore that sameness. But the flip side is sometimes it can be really fun to, within the scope of one campaign, give your players a whole lot of different places to look at, and that's the route we took here. Now, this campaign, the basic premise of it is, as I talked about, a lot of these main cities are sort of organizing expeditions to try and reclaim parts of this world. Now that things, after the unhinging, have had 1,000 years and are starting to calm down, things are starting to get a bit more approachable out in the wilds. And so part of that effort is one city, the city of Fusvik to the north up here, is trying to rebuild or establish a trade route that cuts through the Golden Wind Plains down to another city called Muffafetting. Prior to this time, or prior to this effort, any trade between those two cities has been entirely through a long caravan route that runs through 3 or 4 other cities and adds months onto the journey. Essentially making it so that there really can't be any trade between those cities. It just has to be sort of secondhand trade as various items get moved from, just filtered from city to city as things travel. But now that it seems a bit safer, a bit more plausible, they're trying to make this trade route. Our players will be kind of dumped into this campaign as adventuring members of this adventuring party, this group, this effort to bring or to map out and establish that trade route. Our players are part of that. And they kind of come in right as something somewhat climactic happens as far as that journey goes. In that, the dragon that holds dominion over these Golden Wind Plains comes in and says, "Oi, this is my land. I don't want you guys making a trade route here. All you humanoids come in here and you make things all kinds of messy. You bring your wars and your fights and your smoke and your fires," which is a little ironic that a dragon says that, but it's like he doesn't like the industry side of things that humanoids are just starting to sort of endeavor in with all their tinkering and stuff. And the dragon's all like, I don't like that. I don't like that. You guys got to leave. To which the human effort, or the humanoid efforts will, the members of this party will say, like, well, can we cut a deal? Because, like, we're just trying to survive here and make things a bit better for ourselves. And the dragon's response will largely be, okay, tell you what, I've been trying to get access to this one place over here to the, because they're going to run into the dragon right around here. So the dragon's going to be like, okay, west of here, there's this place called the Hall of Wisdom. It's magically sealed, and you need 4 keys to get into it. I haven't found any of them because I've been busy holding dominion over here and, protecting the good creatures from all of the not so good creatures, all the nasties that are in here. I haven't had time. If you can get me those keys and get me access to that, I will let you build your trade route in exchange. And our players, being generous, agreeable players, will accept this call to adventure, assuming, they can choose to not accept the call to adventure, in which case, okay, we don't have a campaign. Great. But the players will accept that, presumably, and so the adventure begins. Do some research, find that the first key is hidden among the giant society that lives in these sort of northern mountaintops here, and so they will travel through there, go through the efforts to try and make it to this hiding place where there's this key. They'll encounter a couple other giant tribes until they find a shrine. There they'll find the key. Great, first step done. That's 1 of 4. They come back to their main city here, Novotrokladny. This is a small outpost city that the humans have established in order to create themselves a sort of safe zone, a place to sort of grow some crops and be able to resupply this caravan as it's going down without having to travel all the way back north the longer and longer this route gets. So they go back there with the first key, do a little bit of research, find that the second key was hidden with the dwarves that lived further south in the mountains in their capital city of Kagdaral. They get to the Kagdaral. They're expecting to find it an abandoned city. It was presumed abandoned and dead during the unhinging when all of the dwarves fled because all kinds of horrible things started filling up the halls of this city. So they go there and they find it's not so empty. There are actually Duergar there. So now they've got some interesting things to deal with these Duergar, who they're not friendly, but they're also not overtly hostile. They're more just protective of their lands, and so players can kind of have some opportunities to establish maybe a little bit of, working togetherness, if you will. But at any rate, regardless of how they approach that, they will find information that leads them into the dwarven treasure troves that are buried deep, deep, deep within these mountains and are actually sort of a long pathway north and underneath our lake here, or at least on the edge of this lake is where the dwarven treasure vaults are. They'll find kind of information that the Duergar have attempted to get there, have not been successful. So, hey, maybe the players can find more success. And that's kind of what we're working on at this point in time. That brings us up to speed here. So we'll bring in, this is our city of Kagdaral, where our players kind of spend a little bit of time here. This map doesn't serve a whole lot of purpose other than just to give our players something to look at. But, that can make it kind of fun too. But we've got our city of Kagdaral here. And then moving forward, we have sort of the bare bones framework of how the dungeon is going to work. Now, this dungeon isn't necessarily, it's not exactly like you might expect a standard dungeon to be, where dungeons are just like one samey, structure, one singular structure that players kind of go through. I like to do my dungeons as, it's almost more of like a dungeon is just a major leg of the adventure. So sometimes it will all take place in a single location. Other times, like this one, it may be a bit more sprawling. The first few steps of this dungeon are going to take place in sort of an outskirts portion of this city of Kagdaral, an area that's been walled off, and rather than reclaimed by the Duergar, has just been left to the nasty creatures within the mountains, essentially. They're just like, you know what, this part of our population isn't big enough to need this area. It's just easier for us to wall it off, block it off, put a big giant door that we can lock, and then we'll deal with it later if that's what we want to do. So that's kind of what the first portion of this dungeon is. And then it sort of transforms into just a series of underground tunnels, kind of maze-like, that lead to eventually the vaults. And then the final step of this journey is actually going to be, we're going to set a trap for our players. It's kind of scripted, but it'll be fun for them. where once they're in the vaults, in some way, shape, or form, and I haven't exactly chosen how this is going to happen, but in some way, shape, or form, a trap is going to be triggered that will block off their return route through the tunnels back to the city. So they can get to the vault, get what they need, but they're going to basically be forced above ground, and they're going to have to trek through this valley that's in the center of the mountains until they can get back to Cogdoral and then decide what they want to do there. So that's kind of what we're trying to achieve with this dungeon. Now, we've done a lot of work on sort of just kind of bringing the framework into place here. We have, you can see, I'm scrolling through it really fast just so you can see, we have all of the stat blocks for all of our monsters and everything that we want to put into this dungeon. We've kind of already figured those out, which is going to make it a lot easier to add the details, because now we don't really need to think about our monsters. We kind of picked out a theme for the monsters. I did my complicated, convoluted math system that I do for figuring out how challenging it's going to be for players to make it through this dungeon, through any given part of it. And we've already done a lot of that legwork. We've also kind of put the rough framework for various side characters, and various side missions and kind of stuff like that. We've put that into place. So really the stage we're at now is it's time for us to go ahead and put in the details of this dungeon. Start adding some interesting looking, some interesting in appearance map stuff, just to make them pretty as well as make them functional. So that's where we're picking up today. We have also, at least for our first, we've only done it for the first floor, but that's okay, we can get through the first floor. We've also established kind of what's going to exist in each room. We have 10 rooms per set of rooms, and we have 5 sets of rooms, essentially. And one of these days I will actually put my money where my mouth is, and I will describe or explain sort of my philosophy on why I design my dungeons the way I do. But that's a different thing for a different day, especially since we're starting late today. So we're just going to dive in. You can see this is our first stage of the dungeon here. And you can see we've got our sort of 10 rooms, and these will each correspond with something that the players at least can do, even if they don't necessarily have to do it. So let's go ahead and start doing this. We have sort of talked a lot about how within this dungeon there are going to be a group of injured Duergar, and these were one of the parties that the Duergar themselves have sent to the vaults to try, or at least to try and access the vaults. They were unable to, and because they are injured, they've been unable to make their remaining journey back to the city, but are still surviving, holed up in secrecy within this part of the sort of abandoned part of the city. And so we're going to have our players at some point in time find them and possibly be able to do some side mission activities with them, more so for them rather than with them. But that's something that we'll get to, and we can see we've already kind of put them there in room 6. But personally, I like to just kind of work down the checklist and go bit by bit here. So actually, the first thing that we need to do here is we need to do just a couple more groundwork things here. For our skill checks, I always have just some baseline skill check numbers that I put in the dungeon. And the reason I do that is so that way when players are trying to do something that isn't like part of the plan, that isn't scripted, which is a lot of things. I mean, it's not like I script, oh, okay, they have to make this check at this exact point, and then they'll have to make this check, and they can't make any other check. I don't operate that way. Like, some things will need specific checks, but players will always come up with different things, and I'm a big fan of yes and. So they say, hey, I want to do this. It's like, even if it has nothing to do with what I had planned for them, I'll be like, yeah, you go ahead and do that. But I like to have predetermined difficulty checks, easy, medium, or difficult, depending on what they're trying to do, how logical it is, what kind of adversities they're against, and all that kind of stuff. I like to just sort of predetermine these, so that way it's not just me arbitrarily coming up with a number, because I'm always worried that my mood that day will impact it. I'm always worried that, you know, if they're just being squirrely, you know, because sometimes players are just getting a little squirrely and they're just kind of coming up with random things just to be difficult and be silly about it. and like maybe I am trying, I worry that if I'm left to my own devices, those types of things will impact what number I choose. So instead, I sort of have just a basic predetermined set of difficulties that I just plop in there based on roughly what I think they should and should not be able to achieve based on their levels at that time. And we just put those in like that. So for our level 5 here, I like to have the checks be an easy one, an 11, a medium difficulty, a 12, and a difficult check be a 14. And again, that's just, it is kind of still largely arbitrary, but at least this way, it won't be impacted by my mood on any given day, or it won't be impacted by, the players' moods or anything like that. They can just be like, hey, I want to jump across this chasm. I can just say like, well, okay, that's a 30-foot chasm. It's going to be pretty difficult to do it. You're going to need a better jump to be able to make it across there. You're going to need to do some, I guess 30 feet. I wouldn't do that. No one can long jump 30 feet. Not any person in wearing like full adventurers gear. That's not going to happen. But you understand what I'm saying. So we predetermine that. You can see here, these are, so here we already did the math on this one. This first section will have a total of 2,500 experience points. And each section will get a little bit more difficult and have a few more experience points available to them. I use the experience points as a good way to stepwise increase things without accidentally getting too difficult and putting players in over their heads. Starts off nice and easy too, so they can be have a fun time just kind of like learning whatever new powers they got from the last level up, since that will have happened at the end of the last dungeon. All that kind of stuff there. I just sort of predetermine it, and like I say, one of these days, it's kind of a New Year's intent of mine to start doing a little bit more with my YouTube channel, if assuming I find the time, which is always a question mark. I always start off with great intentions, and we'll see. But I'd like to do things that kind of discuss how exactly I get to these numbers. But suffice to say, I've put a lot of work into figuring out how to do these numbers. I use them as a good benchmark. We can be variable with them, but when I use these numbers and the other numbers for the other floors with my players in actual games that I run, it works out pretty okay. So I just stick with that. So these are the level of difficulty that any given battle is going to have here. An easy battle will only have 200 experience points available to it, whereas a difficult one will have 600 experience points available, so on and so forth. We also have figured out exactly what our enemies are going to look like here, what our enemy composition is going to be. For the easier enemies, worth 50 experience points, stepping up until we have sort of a mini boss for this segment here. Our Nothic will be around and sneaking about and doing stuff, and our players can potentially combat him. So that's kind of, we've already got that stuff here. I am just going to, because it makes it a bit quicker and easier to reference in the middle of a game when I set it up the way that I'm about to set it up, I'm just going to do this. So we've got a 50% chance. So I always have, whenever players do take a long rest in a dungeon, I like to have the chance for them to randomly encounter some things, just so it's not like every long rest is a free pass. There's the possibility that it'll be a free pass, but I don't like that to feel like a guaranteed thing. I want players to think well and good about what they're going to do to try and better their odds. If they want to try and fortify and set up a few traps or something like that, then they can do that, and that may influence whether or not they encounter anything on this table. Or if they do encounter anything, it can influence how easy of a time they have dealing with it. It's just to make it so that long rests aren't just hey, click this button and you're suddenly back to full health, right? I don't like it to be necessarily that easy. And I mean, I say that, and even so, a lot of my games will end up kind of having that feel when they do long rest, because a lot of it just depends on the exact situation and how generous I'm feeling towards players. But as a baseline concept, that's where it comes from. One of the possible events here is they could encounter wandering monsters. I always just set these to medium difficulty battle and just throw down a couple enemies. It doesn't really matter. It's just a way to sort of maybe disrupt in, like, if they're waiting until the last possible moment for survival to take a long rest because they want to maximize what's happening on each given day within the game, you know, they might still run into trouble. It's like, oh, yeah, you thought you were going to do that, but now here's some wandering monsters that could finish you because you guys are, you know, are in a really vulnerable state. Just to kind of mix it up and make it more interesting. So, doesn't really matter. We'll do this one. We'll say so because our medium battles will have 400 experience points available to them, we're going to say 2 of the chokers for that one, and then the other possibility we'll do 4 of our chitines. I never really know if I'm spelling that properly. I'm assuming it's like chitin, you know, like, why did I capitalize the 4? There's money chitines there, I'll tell you what. I don't know why. I don't know if chitine. I don't know. I'm assuming it's like chitin, like, you know, chitinous exoskeleton for insects and stuff, but hard to always divine exactly what was originally in their thoughts. Just like it can be difficult to divine what's going on in my thoughts when I write these, which is why I do a lot of extra notes here and there to try and remind myself what on earth I was thinking when I wrote it this way. Because usually there is a reason that I'm doing things, and it makes sense, but it might not always be obvious if I, you know, write this campaign, am done with it for a while, and then like 2 years later pull it out to play with a group. So, you know, give yourself extra notes. I don't know. I don't really know where I was going with that whole tangent. You know, thanks for coming to my TED Talk. Anyways, so we got that stuff taken care of. Real easy. Just a few last little details to take care of before diving in here. But now, let's go ahead and do some stuff here. So this is going to have an easy battle. And, oops, actually, you know what I want to do? So easy battles are worth 200 experience points in this portion of it here. And then we'll add a little bit of descriptive flavor text for it so we can read that to players. But first, I want to choose what enemies. So if it's going to be an easy battle, it's going to be worth 200 experience points. We could just do 2 of the chitines. Oh, excuse me, I apologize. I want to pull these guys up and take a look at all of them again. A lot of times how I decide sort of what the flavor and what the reasoning is based as much on looks as anything else. Oops, wait, hold on. Chitine. There it is. So let's pull this up. Yeah, these guys here. These nasty spidery looking guys here. So we've got that, and then the other ones, what were those other ones? The male striders, right? Let me just try doing strider. Giant stride. No, hold on. That's not right. What was I doing? What did I use here? Hold on. I'll find it. I'll figure it out. Male steeder, that's what it was. It was a male steeder, not a strider, a steeder. I was gonna say I saw the ostrich-looking guys there, and I was like, wait a minute, that's not right. That's not right. Steeder. This was the guy here, which is supposed to be like a spidery-looking thing. Yeah. Sticky leg. Yeah, with the sticky leg and the spider climb there. Even though we don't get a good picture of it, I think it's safe to say that's a spidery looking thing. So I actually kind of want to give, just to make things a little interesting here, I'm going to have this be 1 of the chitines and 2 of the male steeders here. So we can kind of flavor it like it's like one guy with like one of these chitines, and he's got like, he's like riding one steeder as a mount and the other one's like trailing behind or something like that. Just to kind of give it a little bit of interest. So let's go ahead and see here. Take a look at where this room is here. So the thing that'll kind of make it a little interesting to try and describe a lot of these is this part of the dungeon here. This is an abandoned part of our Duragar city. So all of these, like this is, I'm kind of flavoring it to be an abandoned shopping center of sorts, right? So you can go in here, and these are all just different individual shops. This one, I had thought that maybe this could be a restaurant, and it's like this long thing was just a line of tables and chairs for guests to sit, right? Like it's a pub or something, and back here is the bar. So we have to think about a reason why these creatures would be here, and I think the easiest explanation is to do something like this. So walking into this shop, you find yourselves inside what might have once been a pub of some sort. A bar lines the southern wall, while tables fill the narrow room as it runs north. Bar lines the southern wall while tables fill the narrow room as it runs north. Let's see here. Hovering near the bar are two. Wow, I'm struggling with the typing here today. I apologize immediately. Hovering near the bar are two giant spider-looking creatures. They appear to be rummaging through the bar as though trying to find some sort of food that surely will not be there after the city was abandoned thousands of years ago. A rummaging noise near the tables draws your attention, and you spy a bizarre. Did I spell bizarre? No, there's only one Z. No. There it is. A bizarre. Is that like the right kind of bizarre? Is that like bizarres and crazy, or is that bizarre? No, bizarre is in like carnival is B-A-Z. Like that's a bizarre, but this is bizarre. Anyway, I was never an English major. I just do this for fun. There's a rummaging noise near the table, and you spy a bizarre creature that appears to be half human and half spider, as it digs among the tables looking for something, but apparently not finding it. Boom, there we go. Now I am going to put a little note here. Hold on, there's one thing I'm noticing. My attention keeps getting drawn to that big space. I notice these things, which, you know, says something about my obsessiveness, but hey. Some things are just easier to learn to live with rather than try to fight them. Alright, apparently not finding it. So I do want to add just a little note here. I'm going to put a DM note here. I like to try and put DM notes because I know most groups of players will be wanting to try and like stealth their way through a lot of situations, and they'll just generally try to find ways that they can get the drop on enemies. So I like to just kind of put a little note there about, you know, entering the room, what different results can come from different common actions that players will take when trying to enter a room in this way. And then if there's anything else specific, we'll do that. And I always put my DM notes in red, just sort of as a reminder to myself, hey, don't read this part out loud. The black part we read out loud to our players. That's what we use as our flavor text, scene setting type of stuff. But I don't want to give them, you know, all of the details about just the mechanics. So we'll say here, since the creatures are distracted, easy checks for sneaking in without being noticed. So that'll be, so when we say easy checks, we can actually do easy checks DC 11. So if they wanted to try and sneak and spy their way in, that's an easy one because these enemies are distracted. Whereas if they're trying to sneak their way through like a room or a hallway that's guarded, will at least make it difficult to sneak through, depending on how it's designed and organized, maybe even more difficult. So we're just going to add that little note there. That's all we have to add. Just a little something as a reminder. And again, it's just so that way, like, the common stuff we're prepared for, and it's not quite as arbitrary how I handle it. Because I always worry that me arbitrarily handling something will just unavoidably. I mean, it's not like it's a character flaw to have your personal perspective influencing things. We're all human. That's what happens. But if we can minimize it, it makes it a bit more of a game experience rather than risking delving into that adversarial state that some games will run into if a DM is making arbitrary decisions and the players don't like it. Like, I find that if I've got this stuff pre-planned out, I can say, like, hey, this was the check that I sort of planned out a long time ago based on what you guys' level will be. You know, I didn't pick it just now. That's just where it was before I even knew we were going to play this, you know. So you can just kind of add that little there. For me, I pretty much only ever play with my friends. I don't really play with random online groups, so that's a little less of a concern. But, you know, if you're playing with a group of strangers online and it's the first session, it can be good to kind of take that cover-your-ass approach. So that's just me kind of putting that there for my own peace of mind. Now, the reward here is going to be a little bit of treasure here, and so we got to get creative because they're all looking like for food and stuff like that. So we can just add a little flavor, and it's always assumed that they'll find the reward after the battle is completed, right? So treasure, rummaging through the pub, you don't find food like the spider creatures were hoping for, but you do find a lockbox tucked under the bar. It is currently locked shut. And so now I'm going to just put in a few DM notes here. One thing we'll say, we're going to say all relevant checks to accessing the contents are difficult, and that's DC 14. So it's a lockbox. I don't want to like we'll just say difficult DC 14. I don't like doing those extra parentheses and parentheses, which makes no sense because that actually makes it more clear. I take it back. We're gonna start doing parentheses and parentheses. It's just silly. It's just silly because also, you know, what's gonna happen is my editor gonna come in here and yell at me. I'm not good enough to have an editor. This is all me. I can do whatever I want. All relevant checks to accessing the contents are difficult, whether it's searching for a key, picking the lock, or smashing it open. So it would give it like a DC of 14 to try and have them just smash it open if they wanted to do that. And then we're going to add a little bit more here. I like to put the DM notes exactly where they're going to be relevant, so that way as I'm reading through it, I know what part to start with, when to stop and reassess the notes and kind of ad-lib some things, and then where to re-pick back up. It's my personal preference, my personal approach to doing it. If I just give myself everything in a linear order that way, that's less thinking and considering I have to do during session, which means fewer pauses, and helps keep the experience nice and smooth for players, I find. Not that I never pause in the middle of a session, but if I can minimize the instances of that happening, all the better. It's easier to get through more, especially when you play like I do with my groups, where we meet once a week in the evenings, but we only have about 2 hours to play. You want to make sure you maximize those 2 hours, since we're on weeknights rather than doing like 4 to 6 hour sessions on a weekend as a baseline. So we do that. Now let's actually, before we describe the next thing, we're going to pull up one of my favorite tools, which is this loot gen. And what this does is it'll just automatically roll loot from the Dungeon Master's Guide, from all of the tables that are there, based on what challenge you decide you want to put this in. It'll kind of figure that out for you. So now I sometimes bounce around with how I exactly want to do these treasures, and I was thinking about it, and I've always kind of used like challenge rating focused on like, using that as a way based on what the player's level is. But now that I'm thinking about it, I actually think I'd rather be giving the treasure out based on the challenge of the puzzle or the monsters that they just faced, right? So finding sort of the average challenge rating of whatever the monsters are here. So we have 2 challenge rating 1/4 and 1 challenge rating 1/2. That gives us somewhere in the vicinity of 1/3. Either way, that gives us a challenge rating of the 0 to 4. So we're going to roll the loot there. But the idea is, as players are getting deeper and deeper, the other way to do it too is whatever the most difficult monster is, do it that way. In this situation, okay, so 1/2, that still puts us at the same one. But you'll notice that gives like these smaller ones early on. But if we go down to the end of this dungeon when they're facing the big bad, right, the final big bad, which is our giant ape here, now we're up to a challenge rating of 7 for one creature. So now if we do that, that will give us our next tier up treasure trove. So I just thought about doing it that way, just to make it, again, just like with the growing tension, there's also growing rewards for players as they go, and I think that's a decent way to sort of reward them for their continued perseverance through all of the chaotic nonsense that we as DMs put them through. So at any rate, regardless of exactly how you want to do it, let's see here. Oops, we need this to be black here. And let's just list out our loot, and then we can kind of come up with a reason why this loot is there. This is a pretty friendly horde for them. They're getting a lot of cool things here. So at the very least, so we're going to have 243 golden coins, 243 GP. I personally don't bother divvying it up between copper and silver and gold. Some people really like to do sort of the nitpicking pennies of each of them, but my party finds it a lot easier to just operate in pure gold, and do it that way, and just overpay for some basic things. And we'll just kind of assume that like they put on a tab, so it's like if they're staying at an inn, between meals and their rooms, if they cough up 1 or 2 gold apiece, it covers everything. It's just easier than sitting there trying to do math. I mean, no one really wants to have to, do coin rolling as part of their recreational game that they're trying to play. So that's just how I personally choose to do that. Hold on a second. I just realized I got an email from my boss, which I suspect is her saying farewell because she's off this afternoon, but I'm going to check just to be safe. Yep. And end of the year for my boss. My boss is doing the same thing that I am doing next week, which I am so pumped about. Small digression, because this is the first time I've let myself do this as a working professional. I have a day job that like I even while I'm doing these streams, I'm like on call. So these streams, there's always the risk that my streams will be cut off unceremoniously, which is, I'm willing to take that risk because I have fun sitting here doing that, and I usually have time to be able to do it unless something comes up. But since becoming a working professional, which at this point in time, it's been like 5 years I've been part of the working world. I've been like a full-time working world because I went straight from high school to college to graduate school. So for the first, oh man, mathing that out, that ends up being like the first 24, 25 years of my life, I just was a student all the time. I was a professional student, essentially. And then, ever since joining the working world, I've always been willing to come in and cover for other people who wanted time off during the holidays. But this year, for the first time, took the week between Christmas and New Year's off. So I have the entirety of next week off. And what that ends up meaning, because of the observed holidays, being a government employee, I, for the price of 1 week's worth of annual leave, have functionally 2 full weeks off. Well, not 2 full weeks, like two weeks off. It's like 12 days. 12 days consecutive. So, and my boss is doing the same thing. So, it's going to be a nice quiet week next week. Well, quiet's a little bit of a misnomer. There's going to be a lot of time spent with friends and family, but relaxing, free of work week. But anyway, I digress. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. Back to what we're doing here. Just going to copy and paste all these things. I like to just copy and paste the details here. My group doesn't always really worry about getting this detailed in what treasure they find, but my intent with all of these things that I make is to have them be usable for any group at any time in the future. So I like to keep that detail there in case we run into a group that is all about all of that info, all that extra stuff. So we have the 25 golden art, right? Just setting it up like that, and that's fine. We can keep that detail, and then you kind of keep those details in there. Oops, didn't mean to backspace, meant to enter there. And then the other thing that we can do, and this one's going to actually be a bit easier. We can consolidate some of this stuff here. But we will copy this. Copy it. Bring it back in here. Paste that there. Now we got a little bit of work to do to just clean this up a bit. That. We can get rid of a lot of this extra stuff here. Yeah, I don't like keeping all the links in here because these links go away once you leave the the website. My goodness, I'm sorry. My brain is trying to fire on a few too many cylinders all at once. Green flame blade. Hold on, let me redo this. Green flame blade spell scroll. Let's put that right there for him. And then we can get rid of all these potions of healing, and we'll just do 3 potion of healing, and then we have our potion of climbing here. And let me just make sure that has its own bullet point. There we go. Simple as that. So there we go. So there's their treasure here, and so now we can add a little bit of detail here. This to be black again because read this. Opening the lock box reveals. Yeah, there it is. Okay, opening the lockbox reveals a small trove of goodies. Based on the random nature of the items as well as the seemingly random distribution of the coins within into odd coin purses, you can safely assume this may have once been a lost and found box for the patrons of the bar. And you just do that because it's like, like a small mirror set in a painted wooden frame. Fell out of someone's pocket, and like someone's like, hey, this is kind of a nice thing. I don't know if they'll come back for it, and they give it back. Right? Lost and found. Or the barkeep, as they're cleaning up, they find that thing. Knowing the D&D world and how much of a punk everyone can be in the D&D world, if a patron found it, they'd probably just keep it. Which I'd say is fair. One of the earliest laws of existence that you learn as a kid is finders keepers. I mean, come on. But there we go. So now we got plenty of details, and so now the next thing that we can do is add some interesting stuff to our map. Now, one thing that I do a lot, one thing that I like to do here is, as I'm designing all of these things, I will put in like torches and light sources for regardless of hold on, where's lighting? That's what I'm looking for. Regardless of whether or not the things would actually be lit, I always put lighting in there. And I will just describe to my players, like, no, this place is really dark, you're having trouble, it's going to invoke disadvantage, yada yada. And I'll do it that way. But I still put the light in there, just so that way players can kind of get a mental image of what they're working on. As I know, at least with my current players, they have a hard time sometimes keeping an idea of like theater of the mind type of stuff going on, you know, keeping all of that straight in their heads while also trying to juggle all of their abilities and everything. So I have taken to doing them the courtesy of providing this stuff, providing lighting regardless. Which, you know, if any of them are out there watching, as they sometimes are, you're welcome. I listened to the offered feedback. Sorry, that came out as a little unnecessarily adversarial. So we always just put this light here, and then if players shouldn't be able to see, like, pretty much this entire dungeon is underground. They're not going to be able to see a whole lot. They're going to need dark vision or to carry a torch with them, and we'll keep that in mind. But this way, regardless of what is going on, they can see whatever it is they want or need to see. So let's see. We do need to add some doors for this room here. We'll put the snap back on. I like to be snapped. We'll give the bar a double door. Why not? It's a fancy establishment, so it's got a double door. But then we'll also put a door to the back alley here. So this is a back alley, and this is going to be important. But I think because of that, it should have a couple exits there. So we'll do an exit there, and I don't know, maybe they had like a fire exit down over there. I don't know. I don't know if they would have thought that far ahead in the D&D world, but we're going to give them the benefit of the doubt. Plus, the other thing about it, too, is I think about this a lot. I actually think it's pretty fair to put a lot of modern considerations into what we design for D&D, just because even though it may be that these things wouldn't have been considered in the past world, we do still want a lot of what we do. We still want to do our best to make sure that what we do remains relatable to our players. You know, keeps being something that our players can sort of visualize and understand. So it's like, would they in medieval times have thought of a fire exit? Probably not. But it doesn't disrupt the flow of the game and the believability of the environment to put in a fire exit, and it actually adds a lot of fun mechanisms for them to try and sneak up on different people in different ways going around here. So, you know, we modify and we do that a little bit. And I don't regret it. Let's see here. I'm looking for... So we've got tables. Actually, no, before I leave table, let's go ahead and put in a couple of our eating tables. And I think, and the way I'm feeling it is like the tables are all a little off-center, and we'll have like chair, 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 chair for each one. So we can like put a table there. And then if there's chairs, chairs. And so then another table here. Right, maybe this one had like a little tablecloth on it. And we can just kind of do this to make things kind of interesting and fun. So we do that, a few tables there, and then we'll go to our chair right here. And so we can find chairs like this, right? And so we'll just go ahead and plop a couple chairs, put them at like odd angles and stuff. I always like putting the chairs at slightly odd angles. It just makes it look more appealing. And I feel like it kind of helps sell the idea that a lot of these places were left in a hurry based on, you know, our history of the unhinging having happened here. Maybe that one's angled out a little bit. And actually, you know what we could do as well, just to, again, kind of make things even more interesting. is we can take like our upended chair or our broken chair, right? And just like throw that down right there. Then we'll go back to our regular chair. You don't want to overdo it. You don't want to overdo it, and you don't want to put all of the broken ones right next to each other. That makes it seem kind of weird. But see, if we do that, that just adds a little bit of extra interest to the whole situation. Maybe this one had a lot of people that were very kind and actually pushed in their chairs. So we'll just do that. Why not? Nah, that looks weird. I don't like that. I like that. Maybe this table did a bit better, right? And we got 2 mostly pushed in chairs, but then there's like 1 that's way out there. Yeah, so we can do that. And then the other thing that I want to do for this one, just to add a little bit extra here, let's take a few bar stools, and I'm going to put a few bar stools going along in here, right? And just have them kind of poking out a little bit there. Just like that. So there we go. There's that. I think we can also put in, I think it has structure. Let's see. I know they have like stoves and stuff in here. Picture. Yeah, here we go. Well, I guess those are latrines. But it's like maybe we do give them like a little hearth here, because there would be like a pot. Wait, check this out. If we put like a hearth right there that would normally have a fire, we can do that, and then maybe we can grab they have like, I wonder if maybe if I go into food it'll have, oops, no, I wanted food. No, it only has the actual food. I know there's like cooking equipment things that they have around here. I wonder if there's like a kitchen one maybe. No kitchen. Where can I find all that stuff? Weapon, window, wood, thorn, tool maybe? No, not quite. Stable, shelf, ship, sewer, sea folk, sack, rug, plant, rock, pillar, obstacle, mushroom, grave, garden, fountain, games, floating, picture, fish, fire, door, dining. That's what I'm probably looking for right there. At least gives us, well, that doesn't. But actually what we can do is put like a stew kettle, as if like that would have been a kettle for cooking up their stew and stuff like that, right? Because they would have always had their just like continuous stew, which was always just like they added new stuff to fill it out and cap it off, and that was like the meal for the night. So you might have like chicken, fish, beef stew or whatever. So we can do that, and then actually, you know what we can do? We can add just like a couple knocked over bottles and stuff like that. Do a couple of those, and maybe actually just throw in a few random utensils. Alright, if we do stuff like that, maybe like, oh, that's such a big kitchen knife. There we go, that's better. You know, we just add a couple of these things around. They have a spoon? They do have a spoon. This table had soup last time. Everyone else had just like steak. Whatever. Okay. There you go. That just kind of livens it up a little bit. Now, what's going to be interesting about this is I don't think any of these buildings are going to have windows. It's all underground. What use do they have of windows? So I'm going to leave them without windows and just kind of let it be sort of this awkward closed off space because of that. So there we go. So now we got a room. We got a room, and I think that looks pretty good. That gives some interesting combat areas for players to have to work around and stuff like that, right? It'll just make it kind of fun and interesting. It gets some doors, some different looks in there. It's perfect. So there we go. We got a room done. As you can see, it takes a little bit of time to get all these things looking right, but I don't know, because this isn't something that I'm trying to get done within a certain amount of time to make sure I get paid by my publisher or whatever. I like to take my time with these and just kind of like do it right. You know what I mean? Like it's nice making it exactly as I would imagine it being. So, all right, room number 2. This will also have an easy battle, although I'm immediately noticing that I accidentally got rid of that, and that would have bothered me. Easy battle. Again, worth 200 experience points, the easy battles. We can go through there. And then So let's do that, and then we'll talk about what our crafting. Actually, I'm gonna just whoops. No, that's not what I meant to do. I want to do. We'll say crafting tilde or tilde crafting or enchantment item. I've been thinking more and more because I used to give out just sort of the enchantment token system that I do. Another idea for a YouTube video, perhaps, if I can get myself to kind of figure out how to do all that stuff and put it into my workflow. But I have a system in which I give players enchantment tokens, and they can use those to sort of enchant their own items rather than always just having to hope for cool magical items that they like, right? Just kind of give them power over creating what types of specialty weapons they want to create. Like I got one player who's trying to look into creating a bow that can that's like enchanted and can imbue different elemental powers onto arrows that they shoot and stuff like that. So it's like really cool ideas like that. I much prefer indulging in those rather than just giving players money to buy things. I just find that that's a bit more fun and interesting. But at any rate, we'll get to that in a second. First, we got to figure out our battle here. Another easy battle here. I actually think we're gonna go with. Well, let's see here. What kind of space do we got? This is a pretty big open space here, and so we've got for 200 experience points. We could just do one choker. I actually kind of like that idea. I'm gonna do that. One choker. And the chokers are like really nasty looking things. I want to pull up the picture of these guys. They're so gross. Look at these guys. Look at these alien looking sons of guns. Ugh. Just ugh with a side of ugh. Get their spider climb and stuff, making them just kind of gross and horrible. I like them. Well, like I don't, but like you know what I'm saying. All right, so let's see here, choker. So, this shop looks as though it was once a small bookstore. Most of the volumes within have turned to moth dust, but a few tomes, not tombs, tomes, remain intact and legible. So I want to do a couple things here. So giving that, so there's a couple things that I want to do. First off, I want to say, so I'm gonna have the choker be kind of hiding. Check player passive perception to see if anyone notices the sound of shuffling among the shells. And then parentheses, we'll go ahead and do DC. We'll make this one a medium, DC 12, because the thing is like focused on them and it's aware that they're there, but it's not super intelligent and it's kind of rummaging around, and so kind of we'll do a medium because like if they're on guard, they can still kind of notice this. We'll say, and we'll do this. Any success removes stealth or surprise attack round the choker would have. So we'll do that. And so, okay, so, and actually I think we can just do that as simple as that. We don't really need to add any more detail here. So we've got that one. And so now for our crafting / enchanting. So the idea that I've had is to, instead of just adding tons and tons of enchantment tokens everywhere, instead sort of, if players are thorough in their investigation of the whole area, find everything that they would need in terms of knowledge and in terms of materials, tools, and whatever, from scratch, if they follow like the recipe that they can find, everything they would need to make a special weapon that's thematic to whatever this dungeon is. So for this one, given that it's a dwarven thing, I'm thinking we'll make some sort of some sort of enchanted hammer. And we can just we don't necessarily need to know exactly right now what the final enchantment token will be. We'll figure that one out when we get to the very end here. But crafting and enchanting, we'll say one book that appears to be in especially good shape is a book that discusses properties of a well-made warhammer. Is that what would it have me do? Oh, capitalize it. No, why not? I mean, that makes it seem like the game Warhammer, but why not? If it'll get the red squiggly line to go away, I'm content with it. Well-made warhammer. It contains there it is. It contains several recipes for various types of single or double-handed hammers that can be specified based on the needs of the crafter. And so we'll do this. This provides the information. Actually, and I'm going to put this. Oops. Yeah, my bad. We're going to put this as just DM notes here, just so that way we can understand what we're trying to achieve by giving them this item. This book contains any information players would need to craft their own warhammers during downtime. Players may use this for the research portion of attaining the necessary crafting points to unlock actual Warhammer crafting. Just put a little note like that. So I have part of the crafting system I actually use. It's called I think it's called the Better Crafting System, or whatever, Universal Crafting. I forget exactly what it is. But someone else who was more clever than me took the time to sort of make a basic system that's kind of, it's a pretty good attempt at a one-size-fits-all for trying to craft anything. And essentially what it comes down to is players can spend time during downtime. They can spend their downtime, rather, trying to craft certain things. The more complicated it is, the more crafting points they will have to achieve, and players will gain crafting points by basically every time they have a long rest's worth of time to work. To be able to work on this project, they roll a d20. Whatever the face-up is, they get that many points, plus whatever proficiencies they may have based on tool sets, based on skills, all that kind of stuff. So it's like, if they're doing something like, hammering out a sword, you can add the strength there, and then if they have like metalworking tools or whatever, you can add proficiency based on that, if they're proficient in strength or whatever it is. You can kind of add all those points in to give them the ability to craft their own items. And so the way I like to do it is like, there are basic stages of trying to do that. First they have to learn how to be able to craft the thing, and then they have to actually do it. So with a warhammer, it's like they first have to craft it, then they'll have to craft the head of the hammer and the shaft of the hammer, and then maybe we can include something else like engraving it or whatever, and then we'll include an enchantment token that they can then use to enhance it and give it extra powers, and we'll figure out exactly how we're going to do that later on. But we give that information there. Simple enough. Now let's go ahead and just design this room really quickly here. We're getting very close to the end of today's stream, but we can go ahead and finish this up here. So we'll put a door right there. And then I also want to put a door back here, just like a back door into the back alley. So I think Like I say, I just think that makes it more interesting for players if there's extra doors. It may not be exactly realistic, but we're talking about a dwarven city living under the mountains. I think pure realism has kind of departed. So we'll do that. Get our object tool going here. Let's go to used. I'm going to put in a couple. It's on snap. I'm going to put in a couple of these bad boys here. And what we'll do is we'll just kind of corner them all like this. It's a small bookshop. It's not a big bookshop, and that's fine. Get our lighting tool here. Do. Plenty of lighting in this shop here. And now we just need. Let's go to tags here so that we can come up here and we can do. I thought they had like a bookshelf one. Maybe it's just under shelf. That's what I'm thinking of, just shelf. Yeah, so we've got lots of different bookshelves and stuff, and so maybe what we can do, how we can design this. Just make it kind of an interesting one. We'll kind of do that there. You know, just get lots of really cool bookshelves, and actually we can almost kind of do, actually I want to, isn't there a way to mirror image this? Oh yeah, hold A to mirror it. Alright, so we can kind of do this and like create different like portions of our library here. Right, we can do that, or our bookstore I should say. And it's like you can put this right here, you know, just trying to kind of make things look a little interesting here. Kind of offer up maybe some fun, challenging environments for the players to have to kind of navigate through. Right, we can do that, and then we can do like maybe some shelves like here. If we do it like here and here, visually it looks like that way they can still kind of travel through some of these spaces. Right, you do like here and here for those, and then maybe there's just like one more bookshelf right here, and then this little area. Actually, hold on. I like it even better if we were to take this. We can just add another corner bookshelf like right here, and then we can just find one of these little narrow guys, put it right there, do something like that, and then maybe we'll just do like a little. Actually, you know what? Even better. Let's go to table here. Find a little table and just put like a table right there, right? It's like a display table that's got extra, like, you know, featured today with their books. Do they have like study or something like that? Structure, statue, storage, stable. Okay, you know what? Even better. Here, we'll just go here. Search for book. There we go. And so we can just kind of put a couple random books on here. You know, just kind of like that, just to make it a little interesting. And then the other thought that I had is, let's go back into here. Let's go back to our desk. And we'll just put, oh, I didn't want anything that big. I was thinking we could just put something that looks kind of like almost a checkout counter. Oh shoot, you know what I just realized we didn't do? I need to grab this. Can we, I'll just have to delete them and replace them. This one and this one looks like are the two. No, not the light. There we go. Okay, fine, the light, whatever. I'll replace the light there. I guess I just didn't see that I did it there too. Yeah, those two look fine. So let's go back to our object tool. Here we can just go to the used. Here we go. Put this one back there, and this one back there, because they're all like overhead. And then go back to our lighting tool. Go blop and blop. And there we go. Cool. That's perfect. That's kind of an interesting little thing. Lots of different places for players to hide and everything like that. It's perfect. Perfect. I think it looks good. All right. So, yeah, that's good. That's good. A decent, a respectable amount of progress, given the shortened nature of today's stream. it is what it is. Things, like I say, things happen. Holidays make things crazy. A couple things came up yesterday that I just had to take care of, so I wasn't able to stream yesterday. Same thing happened last week, but we're back today. It's good. But yeah, we got some progress done here. What's going to happen now? I'm going to just take myself a short little break. Doesn't need to be a super long break, especially since I've only been going for about an hour rather than my customary 2 at this point. So I'm going to take a short break, and then I will come back, and I will be doing some gaming streaming. I've been playing Neverwinter Nights, and I would very much like to continue playing that. I kind of missed playing it the past couple days, so I'm going to come back on, and we're going to stream that for a little while. It'll be good times. Let's see here. So schedule for the rest of this week. My intent is to kind of break from my usual routine, because usually I don't stream Wednesdays, but because the holiday week is a little different, I am being around, and I intend to stream tomorrow, Wednesday, as well this week, and then also stream Thursday. I can guarantee there will not be a stream on Friday. I will be spending at least Christmas Eve with my family, and I intend to give them my full attention. So as much as I love all of my viewers, not as much. I don't care about you that way. My family gets to come first. So there will definitely not be any streaming this Friday. I intend to stream Wednesday and Thursday, but depending on schedules, depending on how things pan out in different ways, may or may not happen. I may only stream writing. I may only stream video gaming tomorrow or Thursday. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. So that leads me to my first of my 2 typical self-plugs. If you would like to be there for announcements and to know exactly when I'll be streaming this week, I have a Discord server. And if you get yourself signed up for that and joined up with that, you can see where I put my announcements about when I'll be streaming. I usually have those. I usually give a daily update on if I'm going to have to cancel a stream or anything like that. So it's a good place to get information if you want to know. The other option is to just have like notifications on if you follow me, and just when I go live, you'll know about it. But at any rate, my hope is that I'll be here to stream tomorrow and Thursday, but I make no guarantees. So that's what we're gonna try and do this week for streaming. I guess I can also mention today, just because who knows what's going to happen this week. Next week is also going to be crazy and chaotic. I know there will be no stream on Monday next week. After that, it's just kind of playing it by ear. Like I say, I'm on vacation, but I'm intending to use a lot of that time for friends and family. So if I have days where I have downtime and I'm not doing anything with friends and family, then I'll probably log on and stream, but who knows. So I guess what I'm saying is, from now until the end of the year, and from now until the new year turns over, I don't know what's going on. I don't know when I will and won't be streaming. So get on the Discord if you want updates. Otherwise, just check in when you can and see what's going on. I also do have, if you want to see more of my stuff, more of my streams and everything, and it's just too hard to know when I'm going to be streaming these next couple weeks, I also have my YouTube channel, and I make sure to put all of my VODs up on the YouTube channel. So feel free to check that out if you want to see other games I played, see other things that I've worked on, all that kind of stuff. That is there as an option as well. But I think that covers all my self-plugs. So the last thing to do is to just say thank you so much for joining. Oh, hi, kitty. This is an unfortunate timing. I'm about to stand up and go to the bathroom. But yes, thank you so much to everyone who joined me. I have a lot of fun with these streams. I'm glad I'm back to it this week. I like spending time on here. And yeah, it's a fun thing to do. I enjoy it. I have a good time. So thank you so much to all of you. I appreciate each and every one of you. Yeah. So if I don't see you, happy holidays, but hopefully I'll see you later this week, or even in just like 15-20 minutes when I come back and I'm doing video games. Regardless of when I see you, you guys are cool people. I appreciate you, and I can't wait to see you next time. Okay, I'm gonna take my break now. I'll be back shortly.